It's a huge company that many people have never heard of. But in recent years, Accenture, one of the biggest management consultancies on the planet, has moved heavily into marketing. So why did they do it? And how are they disrupting the industry? We'll be finding out on this edition of Marketing Media Money. In a moment, I'll be speaking to Brian Whipple, CEO of Accenture Interactive, the head of the marketing division. But first, James Wright looks at how Accenture came to be making waves in marketing.
On the 1st of January 2001, Accenture was born. Of course, it wasn't a new company, but a rebrand. Formerly known as Anderson Consulting, Accenture was a management consultancy mainly known for technology and service outsourcing. So how come the company got into marketing?
Well, I guess a couple things. One is we're always looking for new services that we can provide to our clients. And it was actually over a decade ago now when Accenture Interactive first got started. And it really got started as an opportunity for us to combine consulting and technology and, at the time, some pretty basic analytics technologies to really help our clients improve their marketing performance. So originally it was a pretty small scope. We really wanted to go after helping the CMOs at all of our Global 2000 clients. And that's how it first got started. We built the business, we bought Fjord, that was one of our first acquisitions, and then we began to add these creative capabilities. We started to see this huge opportunity for us to help CMOs create these remarkable experiences, right? And that's really what our business is based on. It's not based on advertising, it's not based on media, it's not based on creative. It's based on really helping our clients create these just absolutely remarkable customer experiences, and that's what's helping them drive growth.
Fjord and Acuity Group were the company's first big acquisitions in 2013. Fjord, a design and innovation consultancy, Acuity Group, a commerce-based digital agency. So began a number of high-profile buyouts, averaging one every 3 months. Over the following 5 years, Accenture bought a number of digital agencies, including Pacific Link in Hong Kong, IMJ in Japan, and Wirestone in the US. But perhaps it's the more creative acquisitions that has caused a stir in the marketing industry. In 2015, Austin, Texas-based Chaotic Moon joined the Interactive family. The creative technology studio was responsible for virtual reality games like Shark Punch. A year later, Karmarama entered the fold. The UK-based creative agency is the brains behind ad campaigns for brands like Unilever, Just Eat and Honda. Australia's Ad Agency of the Year has been creating creative for the likes of IKEA and Qantas. The monkeys were acquired in 2017. The pace continued through 2018. Digital marketing agency MXM works with brands like Volkswagen and Kraft. And the company behind Emmy Award-winning visual effects for Game of Thrones became one of the more recent creative acquisitions for the company. Macrovision creates computer-generated imagery and immersive content.
Well, we've always been good at organically growing talent in the sort of technology and consulting spaces. So we knew how to do that, and we've been doing that, and that's been part of our growth strategy. But particularly in these areas like creative, like Fjord, the design firm, like Karmarama in the UKI, building something like that from scratch is a whole nother challenge. And candidly, we knew we didn't really have the right setting, the right culture, the right leadership to do that quick enough. So a lot of it was about getting the leading capabilities with speed.
Are you surprised just how big an impact Interactive is making as part of the whole business?
Candidly, I don't think so. I mean, we knew we wanted it to be big. Did we know that it would be over $6 billion last year? I think that exceeded our expectations in terms of how quickly we were able to grow that business. One other thing that really played out well for us that we maybe couldn't have foreseen is just how important Accenture Interactive is to us as sort of a tip of our spear, if you will. We like to use that term in terms of helping us really identify and shape those big digital transformation programs for our clients. And so they're a big part of that as well.
Brian, thank you for sitting down with us. Very
pleasure.
exciting to be here. So Accenture Interactive started in 2010. How has it grown since then?
It's grown a lot. Back in that era, we were an amalgamation of digital assets and a handful of software services and the like, largely focused around technology, personalization, things of that nature, really around the very beginnings of the intersection of marketing and technology. But we were really more smaller plays for large clients, but we would do things like personalized websites and digital diagnostic tools and things of that nature. That was essentially the genesis of Accenture Interactive.
And why did Accenture, a consulting firm, decide to get into marketing?
Well, they have two very important assets that were were incredibly relevant to the CMO. And one was they were already a trusted advisor to these large, Fortune 1000, Fortune 2000 clients, where large clients were accustomed and trusted Accenture to spend large sums of money with them on multi-year contracts. Now, most of that applied to the information technology world or business consulting world. And the second thing they had was a commitment to penetrate the marketing space. So when you marry the two, there was an easy bridge that Accenture foresaw, and that's largely when I joined, when we could take a natural jump from the CEO and CIO to the CEO and CMO of some of the large companies.
Fjord and Acuity Group, two big acquisitions. What was the strategy behind that?
Fjord is more of a classic kind of type A acquisition for us, where we'd be adding a new capability. And the Acuity Group, which was largely a content and commerce group, would be more of a type B acquisition for us, which is scaling a capability that we were already known for, but adding scale.
What's the end goal? Are you trying to spin off this business at some point? I mean, is this become a holding company? What's the vision?
Well, it definitely wouldn't be any kind of a holding company play. That's not really our motto. We don't make acquisitions to add revenue or things of that nature. I don't see a spin-off in the near future because typically much of our leverage and one of our key differentiators is to do this on the shoulders of Accenture. But I would tell you that the holy grail for us is to be more and more known for true experience reinvention in a variety of industries, whether it be how you try on clothes at a high-end department store, how you shop for and purchase an automobile. And not just within Accenture Interactive, but to push the overall industry to kind of change some of these experiences for human benefit.
Biggest competitors, in your opinion?
Our bigger competition right now is the issue of inertia and risk aversion in the CEO and boardroom of the large clients. That's not to say we don't have competition, but our competition is typically either on smaller projects or with executives that are maybe hesitant to go for pure transformation.
Talk about breaking rules when looking at the traditional agency. Is that something that Accenture Interactive is trying to do?
Yeah, so it depends what you mean by traditional agency. So traditional agency typically would mean either advertising or media, or media, I should say. And while we do each of those to some extent, we really don't do traditional media, but we do digital media. And we do advertising. We rarely do those in isolation. So it would be unusual for us to do some big pitch where you have concepts A, B, and C, and you pitch them to the CMO, and you hope they have the big reveal, and they hope they like the one that you like, and you establish the budget together.
Mad Men style.
Yeah, that kind of thing. I mean, there's some of that culture and flavor in what we do for sure, but we're really more focused on how we should try on clothes in the future. How should you buy a car in the future? And clearly, creativity is embedded in all of that. And advertising and media and all those types of things are part of it. But it's less about the classical agency definition.
Brian, thank you. More from Brian after this short break when we return. The challenges involved in integrating creative businesses.
When we acquire a company, we acquire them because we want them to be them, not because we want them to be us.
The world is constantly changing, and the consumer is changing too, so the way businesses interact with customers needs to evolve. It's at the heart of what Accenture does, help businesses and organisations transform, all to make our lives as consumers better and easier. But as the business changes, how does the marketing function need to change with it? Glen Hartman is the head of Accenture Interactive in North America.
Well, it's just a whole new way of looking at marketing. It used to really be, I guess the ultimate goal was personalization at one point, getting the right message to the right person to help them buy more stuff. And that's changed now to really create experiences that can help improve the lives of people. It could be anything as simple as buying a car or maybe having a better experience in healthcare, or even things that are more personal on having brands be able to customize the way that they engage with people just based on their needs in the moment.
Does that mean personalization is dead?
No, it's just an important foundational element, but we have to take personalization to a new level of heightened relevance. And at the core of that is just really finding ways to empathize with the customer and to start defining success in their terms instead of the terms of an organization.
If marketing is changing, what's the role of the CMO doing?
How is that evolving and changing?
Well, this is a really exciting time for CMOs because they've been known for a long time to be knowing the most about the customer and being this brand steward, but now it's really a way for them to not just know about the customer, but to advocate for the customer and to find ways to be relevant to the entire enterprise and have the enterprise come with them to help deliver these experiences the customers really want.
Is CMO now the right title? How are you seeing the role of the CMO changing within the corporate world?
It's a perfect question because this idea of marketing, it's just now so many more things. It's just inextricably linked to technology, to analytics, and really to sales and customer service and a variety of other things. It's way beyond advertising and way beyond broadcasting a message to try and get someone to understand what you stand for. It's much more related to experience and related to finding new ways to measure success.
Let me just pick you up on this idea of how businesses need to evolve. Is it that there's a destination in mind, or are you just resetting the direction of travel?
The new goal is to find ways to create long-term relationships with customers. I mean, that's always been the goal.
I was going to say, that's how businesses have existed for so long.
It's true, but the rules have changed around that because you need a much deeper sense of empathy for the customer. And you have to really understand their goals and reverse engineer around them. That means changing metrics and changing measurement and changing incentives inside an organization to really partner with a customer.
What happens if businesses don't sort of stand up to this challenge? What happens to them if they just stand still?
It's not an option. I mean, we can see multiple examples of anyone that's not willing to change and not willing to put the customer at the center of what they do in a real way, from an operational standpoint, an organizational standpoint, new skills. You can't. It's not a nice to have, it's a must have. So it's just a matter of what rate of change companies can handle while they're on that journey. It's not if, it's just when they get there.
Tell me about the living business, because I've been hearing a lot about it.
The notion of that is businesses are going to have to live and breathe and evolve according to consumer expectations. And consumer expectations are now very fluid and are based upon experiential factors rather than exactly what they have experienced with a direct peer competitor set. So Accenture now will be advising, and really we're helping at the Accenture level clients create and maintain living businesses for their customers.
How would you say culture is different at Interactive versus Accenture?
There's common elements such as always doing what's in the client's best interest and integrity and things of that nature. But if I were to take you to some of our studios in Hong Kong or Sydney, Australia, or London, you would not think this is anything like what you might think is a consulting or IT firm. You would find everything you'd associate with a pure experience agency, which is what we typically call ourselves. You'd see people in very casual dress, and you'd see people with tattooed bodies, and creativity is everywhere. So it is a kind of a merge of cultures in Accenture Interactive, and that has been enhanced even further by a number of the acquisitions we've made.
How did you manage the culture issues that came with bringing a smaller company on to Accenture Interactive and making sure that the integration was seamless, but also recognizing the talent that that company brought in?
Yeah, so I think the first step for us is recognizing that the integration is challenging, and what does the word integration actually mean? So when we acquire a company, we acquire them because we want them to be them, not because we want them to be us. So there is this culture of cultures concept. Now clearly there needs to be some common ground, and we would never be acquiring a company where the founders and executive team are not aligned with trying to create the best customer experiences on the planet for our clients. So there is a culture of cultures attitude throughout Accenture now, and definitely that is one of the foundations of Accenture Interactive. It does have its challenges at times, and clearly when you look at some of the very successful advertising creative acquisitions we've done, such as Karmarama, Rothko, the Monkeys, they have little more of an advertising agency culture, and that's been great for us. And they've taught us some things, and we're kind of meet in the middle, but there is sort of the Accenture Interactive culture is one of embracing many cultures.
How do you continue to maintain the high spirit that these independent companies came in with?
So the key to that is selecting the right ones. So if you are putting your company up for sale, and what you really want primarily is total autonomy, potentially immediate payout, we might not be the best place for you. If instead what you want is some level of autonomy, but being part of a bigger armada, being a big ship in a big armada, taking on a wave of change in this industry around creating huge, better experiences for human good. So if you want to do that, that's what we do, and those are the type of companies. And there's a sort of self-selection process, and we look at many, many companies that we pass on because those visions may not be aligned.
You're starting to see sub-brands carry the Interactive brand. Why do that in this case?
Well, when we make an acquisition, those employees and that acquisition's clients are associated with that brand, and that shouldn't just go away immediately. So typically there's a brand transition period. So for example, Brightstep in Stockholm, they are essentially a commerce and content group that we acquired, 4 or 5 years ago. But what they did was typically associated with what Accenture Interactive does, so there was a shorter transition period. So for Brightstep, they were Brightstep Commerce and Content by Accenture Interactive or something similar for 6 to 9 months. Now those resources and all of that whole Brightstep team, that's Accenture Interactive, Stockholm, as it was for the Acuity Group in the United States. So when something is very easily associated with what Accenture Interactive does, that brand transition strategy will be much more quick. When something is a longer brand transition, it's typically because, like something like Fjord, people didn't associate service design and a lot of that softer consulting, high-touch skill that they have and they're highly skilled at with something Accenture would be good at. So that brand has typically lived on a little bit longer. Now I will tell you, the long-term destination for all sub-brands, as you call them, is Accenture Interactive. We are one team globally, have one management team, and when they go to market as either Accenture Interactive or as it might be Karmarama or the Monkeys, and it might have a reference to creativity from Accenture Interactive. And I'm not saying we won't have any sub-brands under Accenture Interactive, but it will not be many, and they will not be going to market as purely separate identities.
Still ahead on Marketing Media Money. How do you market Accenture Interactive?
We're going to find CMOs and CEOs that have really big, hairy, complex consumer problems, and that's where really Accenture and Accenture Interactive can help them.
If Accenture Interactive sold consumer goods, the business would have a whole armoury of marketing tricks up its sleeve. But as a B2B player, the business may have to be a little more creative. Getting the right message to the right people at the right time is still important. Brand advertising campaigns don't just give a nod to what Accenture does, but also the clients they work with, whether it's a cruise company or an Italian fashion retailer. Print adverts are targeted at relevant trade press. After all, they know who they want to be talking to. Editorial-focused partnerships and provocative points of view all drive column inches. Out of home may raise brand awareness with the general public, but this is targeted. Business leaders travel, so brand messages are delivered at transport hubs like airports and trade events. Speaking of which, Accenture Interactive is highly visible at events like South by Southwest and Cannes Lions, which is just one place where awards have been won. A useful marketing tool in itself.
How do you market Accenture Interactive?
Well, typically we're going to let the work we're doing for our clients speak for itself. We're not big on outbound dialing for dollars type of stuff at Accenture Interactive. Typically the stuff we're doing for clients is large, it's complex, and we're going to find CMOs and CEOs that have really big, hairy, complex consumer problems, and that's where really Accenture and Accenture Interactive can help them. So we have a network through the Accenture account teams, and we have identified a number of these experiences and consumer problems they have, these experiences that are stale, if you will, and we approach them on that, and we find collaborative partners in our client base to do that. So there's not a discrete marketing effort for that per se, but because we're pretty busy as it is.
Why is it important to stay visible in this marketplace?
Well, this is not something where we're selling, accounting systems. And, CMOs and CEOs in the digital consumer spaces are highly visible creatures. They are typically extroverts. They like to talk, they like to listen. And that is in the DNA of Accenture Interactive as well. So we have to behave that way. This is not about hunkering down doing projects.
How are you marketing your product internally among those in the sector?
Yeah, so we'll often bring top clients to go see what other clients are doing. If you're a retail bank, for example, typically you'd want to know what other retail banks are doing. What is their digital bank doing? Do they do mobile deposits? And what is their experience? What is their brick and mortar experience versus their digital experience, et cetera? Today, those same clients are less interested in what their exact peer group is doing. Instead, they want to know what's happening with Amazon, what's happening with Uber, what's happening with Spotify. How do they create seamless experiences like that for their industry? So we will take the best of some of the greatest experiences out there and host workshops with our clients in that way,
And
typically
what-
at our studios.
And what do clients get to see in these studios? Because when I think studio, I think Hollywood, movies.
Yeah.
So what are people going to actually
So
see?
studio here is, think less Hollywood lights and cameras and all that, and more studios of people working together. So you have commerce technologists, because people ultimately need to buy stuff, typically. You have digital content technologists, because sometimes the regulatory language on a piece of digital content might be different on an ad that's shown in Shanghai than in Sao Paulo, than in London. So you have digital content people there. Then you have actual marketing campaign people, creative people designing marketing campaigns for that particular product and service. And you would have wearable, technical people with the mask on, soldering circuit boards, designing wearable devices.
Kind of like a lab.
This would be could be like a lab, and we have them in one facility that we bring clients to. Because we're not an agency in the typical way. We bring all those capabilities together on behalf of our clients. So it's a little bit different.
They come to this
Yeah.
showroom studio and kind of get a sense of what you offer?
Yeah, the site visit is a very compelling thing for us because we have grown very quickly, and we weren't particularly well known 5 to 6 years ago. Now we are, but people still want to touch and feel things and see client projects and see wearable a vending machine that dispenses custom-made fragrances that we've designed in Asia and things of that nature.
Talk a little bit about your story. You were an Accenture consultant for
Yeah.
a number of years. Then you left,
Yep.
and now you're back, CEO of Accenture Interactive.
Yep.
Was it worth it coming back?
Absolutely. It was. I don't know if I would have come back if it wasn't for this kind of unique thing where they were looking for someone that happened to be sort of one half agency, one half business consultant. And I was kind of like, that's interesting because that's sort of who I am in my DNA. And this opportunity came up, and I give Accenture a lot of credit for having the foresight to see that what this could become. And it's been a good match.
What's your biggest success story?
Well, our biggest success story has been the retention of our top executives. And I am flattered by the number of top talented executives around the industry that have been asking to come work here. We have some great success stories with clients like Marriott, like with Carnival Cruise Lines, with Subway, major consumer brands, and we're very proud of those. But I would say personally, the biggest thing I'm proud of is the culture we've created at Accenture Interactive, and we're doing something new, and that is pretty cool.
Is there one marketing campaign that comes to mind as a prized asset under your leadership?
Well, I wouldn't say it was under my leadership because we have many, many leaders. But if you look at the JFK Unsilenced Grand Prix winner at Cannes, it's leveraging technology to complete JFK's speech that he would have given had he not been assassinated that day many years ago, in his own voice.
And that we may achieve in our time and for all time the ancient vision of peace on earth, goodwill toward men.
So that particular campaign, while kind of in the exception for what we do, that's done by our team at Rothko in Dublin, a creative agency. So this is their brainchild. They deserve all the credit for it, but I get to be proud of it too.
10 years from now, where do you want Accenture Interactive to be?
We need to be known for vastly improving the way people check into hospitals, for vastly improving the way people buy and research cars, try on clothes in a department store, shop for groceries, things of that nature, apply for a mortgage. We and our Accenture colleagues need to take responsibility for pushing the industry to reinvent them because we're not there yet. We're not doing enough of that, and too many capital dollars are spent on the Bluetooth toasters of the world and things like that.
Well, it's an interesting strategy. Thank you for sitting down with us.
Thank you for having me.
That's it for this edition of Marketing Media Money. Find more online at cnbc.com/MMM. I'm Seema Modi. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.